In 1999, these young boys began disappearing one after another across Lahore. At first, no one noticed. Most were poor, street kids no one kept track of. But everything changed when a newspaper editor opened an envelope that read, "I have killed 100 children." The letter, signed by Javed Iqbal Mughal, listed names, ages, and addresses, everyone matching a real missing child. It even pointed police to a house on 16B Ravi Road, where what they found would expose not only a killer, but the deep failures of the system meant to protect those children. The disappearances began in June 1998, though nobody was counting them as a pattern. Boys between 6 and 16 would leave for school or the market and never return. Most came from Shadbagh, Badami Bagh, and Ravi Road, working-class neighborhoods where missing children were written off as runaways. According to the Lahore Police Missing Persons Register, between June and December 1998, over 80 minors were reported missing from these areas alone. The actual number was likely higher. Station House Officer Muhammad Ashraf would later testify that many families didn't bother filing reports after watching other parents get dismissed. "We had no central database," he admitted to the inquiry commission. "Each station kept its own records. Nobody was connecting the dots." Local journalist Shahid Mahmood documented the growing crisis in his notebooks. Families would show him photos of their sons, school portraits, Eid celebrations, cricket matches. The boys were laborers' children mostly, newspaper sellers, tea stall workers, garbage collectors. Their parents couldn't afford to miss work searching for them. By December 1999, handwritten missing posters covered the walls along Ravi Road. Faded photocopies of young faces, some offering rewards the families couldn't actually pay. The Ombudsman's report released in 2000 would confirm that police stations within a 2-kilometer radius of what would become the crime scene had received over 100 missing child reports between 1998 and 1999. Less than a third were officially investigated. The rest were filed and forgotten. These missing posters were hanging within walking distance of house number 16B. Across the city, a newspaper editor opened a thick envelope. Inside was a typed letter that would soon shake all of Lahore. It began with a chilling line: "I have killed 100 children." The letter wasn't vague or confusing. It was shockingly specific. It listed names, ages, and even addresses. Every word was signed under one name, Javed Iqbal Mughal. At first, investigators thought it was a cruel prank. Their records for that year only listed around 30 missing children in the entire city. But when they checked the names in Javed's confession against reports from local neighborhoods, the results stunned them. Each name matched a real missing child, boys whose disappearances had never been officially logged. Families had filed reports, but many were ignored or misplaced. The letter also mentioned an address, house number 16B, Ravi Road. It promised that the proof of what he had done was inside. Acting quickly, Senior Superintendent Malik Aslam Hayat gathered a small team and headed for the location. Property records confirmed the house did belong to Javed Iqbal. From the outside, it looked ordinary, a 3-story yellow building with newspaper covering the windows. The neighbors said no one had been there for weeks. Officers broke open the rusty gate. The moment they stepped inside, a foul chemical smell filled the air, sharp, sour, and hard to breathe. Near the corner of the main room stood 3 large metal drums labeled chemical waste disposal. Each could hold up to 50 liters. Most were empty, but forensic officer Tariq Mahmood noted a thick, stinging residue clinging to the sides. It was unmistakable: hydrochloric acid. In a small back room of the house, investigators make another disturbing discovery. On a table, they find several stacks of notebooks, all neatly arranged. When the officers open them, they see pages filled with names, each line recording a child's name, age, and date. Some pages even include the child's address and the names of their parents. Sergeant Abbas Shah begins reading and counting the entries, but after reaching 85 names, he quietly closes the notebook. The handwriting is neat, almost careful, as if someone had wanted to keep an exact record of every life taken. Inside the closets, officers find children's clothes, school uniforms, small shirts, and sandals arranged by size. Some still look new, others are worn and faded. On a desk near the window sits a Polaroid camera, and beside it, several developed photographs showing young boys. The images are clear, and none of the children appear to be smiling. Police photographer Rashid Ahmed begins documenting everything. Later in court, he would say he had never seen evidence so carefully organized. Every item seemed to be placed deliberately, as if Javed Iqbal wanted it all to be found. When the officers search the drawers, they find chemical supplier receipts. The invoices show Javed had been purchasing large amounts of hydrochloric acid throughout 1999, more than 300 liters in 6 months. Each order was signed in his name. That evening, Senior Superintendent Malik Aslam Hayat speaks to the press. He confirms that what they found inside the house matches the details written in Javed's confession letter. But even with all the evidence, the acid drums, the notebooks, the children's belongings, there are no bodies, no remains, no blood, nothing visible. Forensic experts later confirmed that the acid found in the vats was powerful enough to dissolve organic matter completely. But one question keeps everyone on edge. Where is Javed Iqbal during all of this? January 3, 2000, at the Punjab Forensic Laboratory, handwriting expert Dr. Salim Akhtar finishes his analysis of the confession letter. The results confirm it beyond doubt. The typewriter used for the letter has the same key strike patterns as one connected to a 1992 court case, State versus Javed Iqbal Mughal. That case involved charges of assaulting 2 minor boys, for which Javed served only 18 months before being released. Investigators dig deeper. The property deed for 16B Ravi Road shows that Javed had owned the house since 1994. His fingerprints from the old 92 case file perfectly match the ones lifted from the acid drums in the basement. Criminal records reveal more about him. Javed Iqbal Mughal is 43 years old, highly educated, and a graduate of Punjab University with a degree in chemical engineering. Far from being a poor wanderer, he is actually a wealthy businessman who owned 3 properties and ran a steel recasting company. The profile surprises investigators. Javed wasn't the kind of man anyone expected to commit such crimes. Within hours, his name and face leak to the press. Panic spreads across Lahore's poorest neighborhoods, where most of the missing boys once lived. Parents pull their children from schools. Fear fills the streets. That same day, the News International publishes Javed Iqbal's photograph on its front page. Muhammad Hanif, a shop owner whose nephew disappeared in August 1999, tells reporters, "This man used to come to our neighborhood often. We thought he was hiring boys for factory work." Then comes another shocking discovery. Inspector Zahid Mahmood, while checking security footage from a nearby business, finds a clip from December 29th, just 1 day before the police raid. The footage shows a man resembling Javed Iqbal standing across the street from his own house. He's calmly watching the building while police officers investigate an unrelated case nearby. Even more chilling, a witness later says Javed stood in front of an electronics shop watching live television coverage of the area. He was literally watching the police approach his home, knowing exactly what they would find inside. And still, he didn't run far. As you can tell, Javed Iqbal was no ordinary suspect. He was intelligent, methodical, and calculating, a man who seemed to think like a detective himself. But this time, the entire country was looking for him. The manhunt officially began when Inspector General Abbas Khan authorized what became Pakistan's largest coordinated search operation at the time. Police across the country received a nationwide alert describing Javed as 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a gray beard and a slight limp caused by an old leg injury. His photo was sent to every police station and border checkpoint in Pakistan. Almost immediately, witness sightings began pouring in. People reported seeing a man who looked like Javed traveling with a teenage boy named Sajid Ahmed, believed to be one of his assistants. A hotel clerk in Faisalabad, Amjad Ali, later confirmed that a guest who signed the register as J. Iqbal checked in on January 10th. He paid in cash and asked for extra towels and acid, saying it was needed for cleaning purposes. Just a few days later, in Gujranwala, a motorcycle dealer recalled selling a Honda 70cc to the same man on January 15th. When police tested the sales receipt for fingerprints, the results came back as a match to Javed Iqbal. Over the next 2 weeks, police field teams processed more than 300 tips. Each one was cross-checked against what they already knew: acid receipts, hotel logs, and witness statements. Chemical suppliers from across Punjab confirmed that Javed had bought multiple drums of hydrochloric acid under his real name, often paying in cash. Customs officer Pervez Shah verified that no one matching Javed's description had crossed any international border. His passport, found earlier at the Ravi roadhouse, hadn't been used since 1997. By mid-January, Deputy Inspector General Tariq Pervez began coordinating with Interpol, checking every exit record from Pakistan's airports. Nothing. Javed hadn't left the country. Instead, a pattern started to appear, a trail that stretched from Lahore to Faisalabad to Gujranwala to Peshawar. Bank statements confirmed it. Each time police searched one city, a cash withdrawal appeared on Javed's account from another. It was as if he was always one step ahead, leaving behind a digital breadcrumb trail, just enough to prove he was alive, and just enough to taunt investigators. Then on January 30th, 2000, something nobody expected happened. Just as police across Pakistan were scrambling for clues, Javed Iqbal, the man they had been chasing for weeks, walked calmly into the office of Daily Jang, one of the country's biggest newspapers. Security footage captured every moment. He entered through the main door, holding a folder filled with newspaper clippings about himself, as if he were reviewing his own fame. He wasn't hiding or running anymore. Inside, reporters froze. They recognized the face that had been plastered across every front page, the man accused of killing 100 children. Reporter Khaled Ahmed would later recall, "He was calm, polite, and strangely proud. When offered water, Javed thanked them and simply said, 'I am Javed Iqbal. Call the police.'" The newsroom fell silent. The editor, Rashid Chaudhry, tried to keep him talking while someone quietly called authorities. Iqbal spoke as though delivering a message he'd been rehearsing for months. "My work is complete," he said. "The 100 have been accounted for." He refused to explain further. When the police arrived, Javed did not resist. He calmly held out his wrists for handcuffs. Journalists snapped photos as he was led away, looking almost peaceful, as though he had been waiting for this exact moment. During the drive to the Central Investigation Department headquarters, officers noted how he hummed softly to himself. It was a chilling calmness, a complete lack of fear. At the station, his identity was confirmed by fingerprints and older records from previous arrests. He was booked, processed, and placed in a small holding cell. During his first interrogation, he made a shocking statement. "Check your records again," he told investigators. "Some of those children never existed." From that moment, the case took an even darker turn. Over the next several days, Iqbal changed his story again and again. In one interview, he claimed that his confession was a stunt, meant to expose how police ignored missing children. In another, he hinted that he had indeed harmed some boys, but denied the number was 100. The interrogation transcripts filled hundreds of pages, each more confusing than the last. Investigators struggled to tell which version, if any, was the truth. Yet the physical evidence told a much clearer story. Chemical purchases, photographs, notebooks, and fingerprints tied everything back to him. Forensic teams tested the acid residue from his home and found traces of calcium phosphate and hydroxyapatite. both substances found only in dissolved human bone. Chemical experts confirmed the obvious. These were not industrial chemicals used for metalwork. They were human remains. Still, Javed tried to outsmart them. He argued that the acid was for his steel business. He claimed the photos of boys found in his drawers were just employees. But every child in those photos matched a real missing person report. The handwriting in his notebooks matched his own from earlier documents. Every clue, every record, every receipt pointed to him. Investigators realized Javed Iqbal wasn't just a killer. He was meticulous. Every detail was cataloged, every name written down. It was as if he wanted to leave behind a permanent record of his crimes. But he hadn't worked alone. When police traced phone records and bank transactions, another name kept appearing: Sajid Ahmed, a 17-year-old boy often seen with him. Witnesses recalled seeing the two together in markets and neighborhoods where children had vanished. Sajid was arrested and brought in for questioning. At first, he claimed Iqbal had forced him to help, threatening to kill him if he disobeyed. But later, he changed his story, saying police had coerced his statement. Even so, the evidence was clear. Bank withdrawals made by Sajid from Iqbal's account matched dates when children disappeared. CCTV footage from Raja Bazaar showed both men together during 5 separate disappearances. One tea seller told reporters, "The younger boy would talk to street children. The older man waited in the car." Police soon discovered 3 more young men, Shahzad, Tariq, and Nadim, all linked through financial transactions and property transfers. Iqbal had given each of them money and even a small shop. When questioned, they initially confessed to helping lure children, only to later retract their statements. By February 2000, the case had grown into something far bigger than anyone imagined. It was no longer just one man. It was an organized system of abduction, manipulation, and silence. And still, there were no bodies. The trial began in March. Reporters from around the world filled the courtroom. The prosecution came armed with thousands of pages of evidence, receipts, photographs, and forensic results that tied every part of the puzzle together. The typewriter used for his confession was brought into the courtroom. Experts demonstrated how the letters struck the paper, perfectly matching Iqbal's confession letter. Forensic experts explained that hydrochloric acid, when concentrated, can dissolve organic matter completely within 24 hours. The drums found at his home contained chemical residues that could only have come from human remains. Then came the most emotional testimony of all, from the parents. One by one, they stood before the court, identifying clothes and photographs found in Iqbal's house: a small school uniform, a pair of sandals with a broken strap, a cricket cap. Each item belonged to a missing child. There was no shouting in the courtroom, no dramatic outburst, just the sound of grief heavy enough to fill every corner. The defense argued that Javed's confession was fake, a desperate act by a man seeking attention or revenge against the system. But that claim collapsed quickly. Javed had surrendered voluntarily, and all the evidence was consistent with what he'd written. The acid wasn't for steel, the purchases were far too frequent and excessive. His fingerprints were on the inside lids of the drums, placed after the acid had been poured. In mid-March, after weeks of testimony, the judge delivered the verdict. Javed Iqbal was found guilty of 100 counts of murder and kidnapping. But it wasn't just the verdict that shocked Pakistan. It was the sentence. The judge declared that Iqbal would be executed in the same manner he killed the children, by strangulation, dismemberment, and dissolution in acid. It was a punishment meant to reflect the horror of his crimes. Some called it poetic justice, others simply horrifying. Even seasoned prosecutors admitted they had never seen such a ruling. The case dominated national headlines. But before any sentence could be carried out, appeals were filed. Human rights groups protested the method of execution, saying the law must not mirror the brutality it condemns. the government announced that all legal procedures would be followed before any final action. And then, before justice could be served, the story took another unexpected turn. On the morning of October 8, 2001, guards at Lahore Central Jail made their usual rounds. When they reached the cell shared by Javed Iqbal and Sajid Ahmed, they found both men hanging from bed sheets tied to the ceiling bars. It was over. The man who had confessed to killing 100 children was dead. The official report listed the cause of death as suicide by asphyxiation. The post-mortem found no signs of a struggle, no drugs, no poison, just two men who, according to records, ended their lives in silence. But not everyone believed it. Critics and family members questioned how two prisoners under constant surveillance could hang themselves without anyone noticing. Outside the prison, chaos erupted. Families of the victims gathered at the gates, many weeping, some shouting that justice had been stolen from them. One father said through tears, "We wanted to see him face what he did." Now, we'll never know the full truth. In a single morning, the case that had terrified a nation was suddenly over, without a trial conclusion, without answers, and without closure. But Javed Iqbal's crimes left a permanent mark. In the years that followed, Pakistan began to reform how it handled cases involving children. The tragedy had exposed deep flaws: missing reports ignored, investigations dismissed, and records lost. The government responded with new laws, including the Child Protection and Welfare Act of 2004, which specifically mentioned the Lahore serial killing case. Soon after, the Child Protection Bureau was created to ensure no child disappearance would ever be ignored again. A new database system was introduced to connect police stations nationwide, something that had not existed during Iqbal's time. This allowed authorities to track missing children more efficiently and share data across provinces. By 2011, specialized child protection courts were established in major cities. Reports showed a 60% increase in recovered missing children. The tragedy had sparked real change, born from unimaginable horror, but leading to long overdue reform. As for the place where it all began, 16B Ravi Road, the building was demolished in 2005. In its place now stands a small memorial garden. Families gather there every December 30th, lighting candles and placing photos of their lost sons. There's no plaque, no grand statue, just quiet remembrance and the hope that their children's suffering wasn't in vain. What began with a single confession letter, "I have killed 100 children," ended up revealing far more than one man's crimes. It exposed how easily the poor and voiceless could disappear without anyone in power noticing. And while Javed Iqbal's name will forever be remembered for horror, the legacy that followed, the awareness, the reforms, the renewed focus on child safety, became the one light that grew from the darkness he left behind. If you value respectful, evidence-based storytelling that keeps the focus on truth and justice, consider subscribing for more documentaries like this one.